Mike. Thank you. Okay, let's just take one easy breath. Are you feeling prayed up? Heavily meditated? Well, you are in for a treat. Michael?
Good morning, everyone. I think I'm supposed to stay in this light area, and I only need this just for a minute, and we want to take care of a few preliminary things, early things, okay? And then we'll get started. Just so that you guys know, I'm not a minister, so don't expect me to be like Reverend Ann. I'm more of a speaker and a storyteller. Now, I know a lot of the faces here, and I've seen a lot of you guys, and some of you have seen me before, but whenever I come to Unity or whenever Naora goes to CSL Dallas, the same question pops up. So I'm going to handle that question right now before we get started, okay? So Naora goes to Unity, and I go to CSL Dallas. Unity is like 10 minutes away from our house. CSL Dallas is about a 45-minute drive. 20 years ago or so, I decided that that's what I liked, and that's good for me. But Naora wanted to be closer to a place where she could participate more. And a 10-minute drive and a 15-minute drive is a lot better than a 45-minute drive. Now, some people think, well, then how can you be hearing one message and then she hears another message? Well, the reality is that we get double pleasure. So anything she hears, then I get to hear, and vice versa. There's a reason for that, because I don't want her be hearing some stuff, or she hears some stuff, and then we don't know what's going on in each other's head. You know, it could be one of those Sundays where Reverend Ann says something and Naora goes off on a tangent, and I don't have a clue why now, you know, we're doing what we're doing anyway. So it's important for us to at least share those sermons. So for me, it's like I get double sermons every Sunday. So handle that part, okay? That's why you don't see me here all the time. Now, the other thing I want to share with you too is that, you know, Advent is a time for hope. It's a time in the Jewish and the Christian community where they talk about two things. One, the coming of the Messiah, and then the second coming of Christ. Now, I think those are some really good, inspiring stories, but I like to somehow bring those up into current days. How can I use those ideas about hope, and how can I use that to help me now in my day-to-day problems, okay? So, another thing, let's get this out of the way real quick, okay? Some people have a thing about going to church and they've got to hear some Bible verses. I brought you Bible verses, just so that you know. Now, these are Bible verses just for hope, just to get you started, okay? Now, Isaiah says in 40:31, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on the wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Now, Psalms 71:14 says it like this. As for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more. It's all about that hope, okay? Now, Bible verses are cool, but then there's some intellectual people who have some things to say about hope too. So I want to make sure that we hear what some of them say about hope too, okay? Now, Desmond Tutu says it like this. He says, hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. I like that one, don't you? That's a really good one. Here's another one. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. That's a Martin Luther King Jr. one, okay? And since I stumbled on it, I'm going to say it again for you, okay? We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Now, here's one of my favorite ones, okay? This is from Maya Angelou. She says, when you do nothing, you feel overwhelmed. You need and you feel powerless. But when you get involved, you feel the sense of hope and accomplishment that comes from knowing that you can and that you are working to make things better. That's hope, okay? Now, that's what the Bible says about hope. That's what those philosophers say about hope. Now, you got to know what Webster says about hope, okay? Webster just simply says that hope is the expectation of a positive outcome. Now, what I say about hope is, hope is having only positive expectations. H-O-P-E, having only positive expectations. But one more, okay? Because, well, a lot of people think that Advent starts with the Jewish religion and then goes on to the Christian religion, and now we celebrate Advent. The reality is that people have been celebrating and getting ready for the winter solstice, for Christ's coming, for thousands of years. So they've always got prepared to see if that sun would keep coming back. So it's nothing new to be celebrating it. And the idea of having hope, that surely is nothing new. In the Jewish religion, they have two definitions for hope. One they call Yahal. And Yahal is when you wait. It means to wait. It's kind of like waiting for something to grow or waiting for something to occur. So, for example, Noah was in Yahal while the floodwaters receded. He was waiting for those floodwaters to recede. If you plant a seed, that's Yahal. You're waiting for it to come up, okay? The other term that they use is called kavah. And kavah, I like this one because it's a different type of hope. It's the kind of hope it's like when you have they say when you have a cord and you pull that cord real tight, and just before it breaks, that's kavah. That expectation, that giddiness, that you get when you know something's going to happen. Well, that's what they say about hope. Hope, having only positive expectations. Now, that's what those folks say about hope. Let me tell you what I say about hope, okay? I love to share stories about hope, and I love to share stories, period. But for this one, I had to go dig a little deeper to find out some good stories about hope. But then once I started thinking of hope in a different way, it just came flooding through. All the thoughts and all the experiences and all the times when I had hope in my life and when things had worked out because of that hope. When I was a kid, I like to tell stories about my dad. My dad taught me how to swim, okay? And he taught all of us how to swim, and we all are good swimmers. But he taught us how to swim in the shallow water, the 3 feet water, teach you how to float first and how to swim and stroke and all that stuff. But when it comes time to go in the deep water, that 9 feet water, this is what Dad did to me. He threw me in. Just threw me in the water. And I started flailing around trying to keep my head up and trying to, not to drown. And just at the last minute, he dives in, saves me, pulls me out, takes me over to the bank, get out. And you know what he does? He threw me back in the water. And again, I did the exact same thing. I started flailing around, trying to kick my feet, trying to tread water, keeping my head up above water. And I stayed a little bit longer this time. But just when I was about to go under, Dad jumped in the water, and he saved my life again. He did that 4 times, 5 times, again and again. And each time, I would stay just a little bit longer, and then he would jump in and save my life. Finally, after about 6 or 7 times, I finally made it to the side. I swam all the way to the side. Dad said, "Do you know what happened? You know why that worked?" I said, "Well, no." He said, "Well, the first time I threw you in, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking I was going to die. I was thinking, somebody better save me." "Yeah, and when the second time you swam a little bit longer, you stayed a little longer. Why was that?" "Well, I knew like last time you came in and you jumped in at the last minute, and I figured that if I could just keep my head above water long enough, Dad would come and save me." And that's just what happened. He said, that's how it works. That's how you use hope. You just keep holding on a little longer and a little longer, and each time you'll be able to go a little further, a little further, and a little further. And that's how he taught me how to swim in deep water. I had that kind of hope. See, when you have that kind of hope, that's like an experience. You know things are going to work out. So I want you guys to indulge me, okay? So listen up real close, and do this only if you're able, okay? I don't want you to hurt yourself. But if you've ever had any kind of physical problems, like you've been sick, you broke a leg, you sprained your ankle, maybe you had a stomach ache, maybe you had a miscarriage, maybe things just didn't go well. If you've ever had any kind of physical issues with you, stand up, okay? Just stand up, okay? Now, you don't have to, but if you ever had one, just stand up. Now, if you've ever had any kind of financial problems, like maybe you didn't have enough money to pay the bills at the end of the month, or maybe you you ran out of money, you couldn't pay your bills, you lost your job. Things just didn't go right for you financially. If that's ever happened to you and you're not standing up, stand up. And if you're already standing, just raise your right hand. If you've ever had any kind of financial issues, okay? Now here's the third. If you've ever had a problem with a relationship, your kids were acting like they didn't have no sense at all. Your husband, your wife, they left you, they didn't like you, whatever. If you've ever had any kind of problem with relationships where things just didn't work out, then either stand up or raise your left hand, okay? Now, if you look around, most everybody is standing up, everybody has their hands up, which means everybody has had some kind of physical problem, some kind of financial problem, some kind of problem with their relationship, right? Okay, now you can sit down, okay? See, that's evidence. That's evidence that you've had things go wrong in your life, or you've had struggles go wrong in your life, but somehow, I don't know how you did it, but the mere fact that you're here proves that you handled it. It proves that you didn't succumb. Whatever it was, that physical problem, that broken leg, that sprained ankle, didn't stop you. Eventually, you got over it. That divorce, that somebody who broke your heart and thought that they were going to just hate on you forever, didn't stop you, right? You're still here, right? All those problems that may have happened, you still are here. So you have reason to have hope. When anything's happening in any of those areas, you know that you can handle it because you've done it before. Now, see, sometimes you got to get your hope ready and you got to get your hope together. I ran a 10K race 2 weeks ago. That's 6.2 miles, okay? That was my birthday present. I turned 69 years old, and I wanted to see if I could run 6 miles. And I did it, okay? But here's how this involved hope. I wasn't really concerned about whether I could run the 6.2 miles. That wasn't the problem. I had ran 6 miles many times, and I did that a couple of times when I was training, so I knew I could do 6.2 miles. But what I wasn't too sure of was whether I had the will to get up on a cold, wet, dark morning and go run. I didn't have anything to prove to anybody, so would I be able to get up and do that? Well, here's what I did. I prepared myself. Like a couple of weeks before the race, one day it was raining cats and dogs, and I got out there and I ran in that rain, and my shoes were full of water, and you could hear the slush, 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 slush. And I came back to the house. I was soaking wet. But I got that feel for how good it feels to run in the rain, and just reminded that, oh, this is kind of cool. I kind of like running in the rain. It's not really as bad as I was thinking, and just reminded me I did this before, and it was okay. I got up one morning, and it was cold. It was like 30 degrees, and around Texas, that's cold. I come up north, and up north, 30 degrees is not a big deal. But since I moved to Texas, anytime the temperature gets below 60, I become a little sissy, and I just can't handle that one. So what I did was I got up early in the morning when it was still dark outside, and I went and ran in the cold. And I got myself adjusted, and I said, it reminded me just how it felt when I was running back in St. Louis when it was cold, or when I'd run in New Jersey when it was cold. It's like, well, I can do this. This is not that big of a deal. So on the day that it came, on November 19th, early that morning, it was cold. And they were predicting snow, and it did snow, and it was wet. But I got up and I ran that 6.2 miles in better time than I'd ever ran it before. All because I had hope. And sometimes those two different kinds of hopes get mixed up. Because see, I had the hope of knowing that I had planted the right seed. I had did the right thing so I could expect, and I knew what was going to happen in that race. I had that kind of hope. But I also had that hope, that giddiness, that excitement about, getting ready to go do something new, stretching myself. And that really got me excited, having that kind of hope. See, hope to me, it's a reason why they talk about it during Advent. There's a reason why we bring that up. Because it's something that we need to incorporate in our lives. It's like a tool. It's something that you can actually use. It's not just an abstract word. To me, it's an actual tool. It's one of those attributes of God to me. And attributes of God are simple. They're like It's two sides of the same coin. Law on one side, love on the other side. That law, that's impersonal. It's going to happen no matter who, what, when, where, whatever. It will happen to everybody. You plant a seed, it will grow. I plant a seed, it will grow. Doesn't matter. That other side, that love side, I think that's that emotional side. That's that spiritual side. That's when you get excited about things, okay? That kind of hope makes a difference. Now, I use this hope even with the young people in my family. I use it in a couple of ways. My grandson's sitting right over there, Thomas. My grandson, Thomas, he's 24. He's growing. He's going to one day be a great mad scientist and do wild, great things. And he's going to do a lot of this stuff after I'm gone, and I'm gone wherever I go next, and I won't be here. But meanwhile, I would have planted some seeds in him, even that he won't know about. Some seeds about how you turn out to be a responsible person, seeds about how do you make good grades, seeds about how do you excel, seeds about how do you become the kind of person that I hope that he'll be in his life. That's the kind of hope that I have. And I have that hope because I'm planting those kinds of seeds. It's that kind of hope. I use that same hope with, I've got some nieces and nephews that will drive you crazy. You hear me? And by the time you get to be my age, you've seen a whole bunch of kids grow, and you just kind of know how that's going to work out. So I know when they're young, you know, that nice age, when they can just start to talk, that's a good time. They can talk back to you. They're fun then. Then about 8 or 9 or 10, they're still fun. They like to go do fun things like the rodeo, the circus, all that stuff. But when they get to be teenagers, they don't want to have nothing to do with you. And I understand they're trying to find their own way, be their own individual person. But those teenage years, like from 15 to darn near 25 in my family, they just go crazy. You don't know what they're going to be doing next. But you know what I've learned? Is that if I have hope and exercise that hope, then I know things are going to work out okay. Because I've seen it happen before. I've seen others come through before that have acted like they were crazy when they were teenagers. But by the time they get to be about 22, 23, 24, they start seeing the world a little different. And all of a sudden, they want to come on back home. They want to be a part of the family and come hang out. Well, I want to be the uncle that they know is still there, that they can count on. That was there even when they were acting crazy, but I'll be there. Just sort of like the prodigal son's father. You know, when they get it together, you want to be there. I have that kind of hope in that generation. Like I said, hope, it's a tool that you can use. But Thomas and I talk about science, and then we talk about applied science. So there's hope, and there's applied hope. When you have applied hope, then you just take that tool that you have and you use it, and you focus on that kind of hope. You do those kinds of things that make your life better. Now, I came here last Sunday just to kind of get a peek at you guys, to see if the crowd still looked the same as it did when I had been here before. And what I noticed was there was a few gray-haired people here just like me. So a lot of times when you talk about hope, you're talking to youngsters about the hope for their future. And old folks kind of think, well, doesn't apply to me. I can kind of turn off because I've lived my life. I don't need no hope. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's different. If you're still here, if you're still breathing, if you're still above ground, you have a reason to hope. And you have a reason to live out that hope. I don't care what your age is, what your deformity may be, or what your shortcomings may have been in the past. There's always room for hope. My mom is here. See her lady up there? My mom is 93 years old. 93. Yeah, 93. Now, when I retired, I was in my 60s like everybody else. But it didn't dawn on me that when I retired in my 60s that my parents and my in-laws would be in their 80s. It just went over my head. I didn't think, I'm going to have to take care of older people and do those kinds of things, but that's just what happened. And from dealing with my mom and my mother-in-law, I've learned a whole bunch of things about having hope and how hope can sustain you. I take my mom to the doctor quite a bit, okay? And I take her to the doctor she had to go get recently a colonoscopy and a mammogram, and I'm thinking, well, we went to the doctor's office, okay? And Mom has medical background. She was a surgical nurse, okay? So she knows about this stuff. And she reads all of this doctor's certificates and all the pamphlets and stuff. And then this young guy, about 40 years old, comes in. And he talks to Mom a little while, and he says, you know, we don't normally do colonoscopies on people who reach 85 and older. They'll probably die of something else. Okay? And Mom started talking to him about all of the certificates that had been on the wall and where he had went to school and how she knew some of the doctors that he had studied under and just kind of avoided that whole idea about being too old to get a colonoscopy, okay? And then she was going to get a mammogram, and I had the same thought in my head. Well, at what age do you stop getting mammograms? But you know what dawned on me? I said, my mom is 93 years old, okay? Now, I'm in good shape, and I'm in good health, but a lot of that has to do with her genes, okay? Okay? Designer genes at that. But if she can make it to be 93, she might know a little bit more about health and hope than I do. One thing she might know is that if you want to be 94, then you have to take care of things when you're 93. I heard this story about Norman Vincent Peale. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale was about to go on stage and give a sermon, and a young whippersnapper was standing next to him, a little young guy, and he looked him up and down and said, Dr. Peale, how old are you? And Dr. Peale said, well, I'm 92. And he said, I don't know if I want to get to be 92. And he said, that's because you ain't never been 91. If you ever get to be 91, you will want to be 92. And what I figured with my mom is she's 93. She has a great aunt who made it to 103. And Annie said the way you get to be 103, a lot of red raw meat, a lot of gin, and believing in the Lord. That's just what she said. But if Mom's going to get to be even like Aunt Annie, 103, well, that's 10 more years, right? Well, wouldn't that mean that you take care of your health every day up until 103? Does that mean you stop? No, that means you get your mammograms. That means you get your colonoscopy. That means you do those kinds of things so that you can keep living. You live with hope. So I don't ask those crazy questions anymore about why would my mom at 93 want to get a colonoscopy? Because she knows something that I don't know. She knows something about living with hope and living with longevity. That's something that I want to do. I don't want to be an older person who thinks that life is over with me just because I've retired. There must be something for me to hope for, something for me to dream about, something for me to wish for. I've got an older sister, Reverend Ann, who's just turned 74. Joan Marie, right over there. Okay? Now, Joan is 74 years old, okay? She lives in a house with, a place where senior citizens live, old people live, that kind of thing. But she's not old like that. The lights weren't working, and she went and complained to somebody and got the lights fixed. Street lights weren't working. She went and met the mayor and had that changed. Food around that she didn't like the way the elections were going. She started going down to Austin, and she would march around with those little funny hats that they put on their head and stuff. She'd go march over in Fort Worth. She's become an activist. And not only that, she doesn't just do activism. She works in the election booths, okay? She's one of those people that you see when you go to vote. She actually cares. When people start talking about banning books and what are we going to teach kids and what we're not going to teach in Texas, you know what she did? She got involved. She got involved with the public library. Now they make her the chairman of the Library Association, some kind of thing. I don't know, But she shows me that there's a reason to keep having hope. Even as we age, there's stuff that we can do, things that we can do. There's a reason for us. And I'm so proud of my big sister to be that kind of woman, and proud of my mother too. But the point is hope. Hope. Hope that we all will someday live to our full potential. Hope that we will all someday awaken to the Christ consciousness in each of us. Hope that we will always look on the positive, on the bright side of life, and be able to see things like that. Having only positive expectations. If you have only positive expectations, you'll be able to handle those financial problems that come up. If you have only positive expectations, when your relationships go wrong, when you have problems with your relationships, you'll be able to handle that too. when you have only positive expectations, it won't matter whether you have physical problems, financial problems, problems with kids, any of those. You'll be able to see that there's a possibility. There's a way that you can work your way out of it. And if you can see a possibility, if you can see hope, then you'll hang on a little bit longer. Then you'll just keep on splashing around in that water just a little bit longer before your Father jumps in to save you. It's all behind hope, having only positive expectations. So I've got another question for you, okay? Now that you've heard some examples of what people have done to show and express hope, to use hope, now that you have different definitions of hope, do you think, well, stand up if you think you can go through the rest of the week with a little bit more hope. Stand up if you think you can make it through the holiday season with just a little bit more hope. Stand up if you just think that you can make it through the next political season, all the ups and down seasons that we have, with just a little bit more hope, okay? So having only positive expectations, hope. I hope you all have a great holiday season. I hope you enjoy Advent. And as you sit down, I'm going to tell you one more thing that I hope for you, okay? I hope that you have learned, just like I've learned, that Advent is the time that we begin to celebrate Christmas. It's when we begin to celebrate the birth of Christ. It's when we begin to put up, Naora, Christmas decorations. Okay, not Thanksgiving. Advent is when we begin to put up our Christmas decorations, okay? Hoping it's going to be a great year, okay? And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I had a great time being here. Thank you. Okay?